This is a bigger deal than a lot of issues that we consider, because today we're not just passing a law, and today we're not even on the first consideration of a constitutional amendment. We're on the second consideration of a constitutional amendment, which means that if we pass this today, we will then be sending it to the voters on the April election and ask them if we should change the foundational bedrock document of law for our state. And so when I considered this resolution, this proposal, I wanted to know the history behind the issue we're facing. And so I had the Legislative Reference Bureau draft a document for me, just going over how the state constitution has changed over the years as it relates to bail. Because I wanted to know what our original founders wrote, and I wanted to look at how it's changed over the years. It's changed a couple of times. The last time this section changed was in 1981, and it was changed with the best of intentions. I think everybody here, when they make a proposal, does so with the best of intentions. We want to improve our state. We want to make it better. But here's that dirty little secret. We don't always get it right. Sometimes we make a mistake. And that's what we did in 1981. It was a good idea to try to have more accountability, create a system to try to make sure our court system worked better for that principle of innocent until proven guilty. We wanted to try to strengthen that, and that's a good idea. Unfortunately, what we saw is it kind of broke our court system by the change that we made. And so what we saw, interestingly enough, especially those on the left, but you'll see some of those on the right, have this idea that we want to try to have criminal justice reform. I'm one of those. I want to try to make improvements in our court system to try to make sure that we are better engaging people who are, going to be eventually getting out of prison. We don't want to overly criminalize our society. There's a lot of improvements we can make. So what we hear is this idea of mass incarceration. We want to lower mass incarceration. Well, if you follow the data, we heard data earlier on the federal level, but let's talk about Wisconsin for a second. If you want to talk about mass incarceration, you know when that started? Right after we screwed up in 1981. The population in our jails, in our prisons, went like this. It's right there. Now, we can debate as to why that is. I personally feel it's because we weren't holding people as accountable as we should have been. And then they started committing worse and worse crimes. And then they ended up staying in longer when all was said and done. We made this mistake. I remember hearing, we quoted a lot of people earlier. Heard Governor Evers was quoted, Jennifer Doro was quoted. I'm gonna quote Bernie Sanders here for a second. You know what? You know what he said recently? And this really struck me, actually. He was on a different issue. But what he said was that we need to be honest with the people, and we need to accept the basic principle that no matter what we do in a legislative body, we're never actually going to completely fix an issue. What we are trying to do is improve the situation. So this amendment is not going to completely eliminate people who are out on bail committing additional atrocities. It's going to happen at some point, no matter what system we pick. It's not going to completely fix the issue, but we can improve it. And the data from Wisconsin shows that what we had prior to 1981 was more effective. So this isn't, if you look at the Legislative Reference Bureau memorandum I have, and talk about what we had before, this isn't just changing our state constitution. It's actually restoring our state constitution, at least a section of a principle that we had before, which allowed judges to have more information to better protect our communities. We are restoring that principle to our state constitution again today, or we will when the voters will pass it in April, which I am confident they will do. Not only do I expect every Republican here to vote for it, just like they did in the Senate, but I expect several Democrats will do in this chamber, just like they did over in the Senate, because this is a bipartisan, common sense proposal that says, you know what? I want a judge to be able to have all of the information, and that will better enable him or her to keep our communities safe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.